There is a specific kind of quiet that only powerful men can make. Not the quiet of absence. The quiet of a man who has decided something, and the entire room understands. Before he opens his mouth. Before he moves. Just decided. And everyone holds their breath. Kim Jae-won made that quiet. He made it with 5 words. In a room full of dangerous men. For a woman none of them expected him to look twice at. Then the scene itself unfolding like it's happening right now. She is standing in a gold-lit room that smells of whiskey and old money. Her dress is red. She is the only black woman in the room and she knows it, the way she always knows it. Not with fear. With calculation. She has been calculating since she landed in Seoul. She is very good at it. She is not good at this man crossing the floor toward her, and the way the room parts for him like water that knows what it's touching. Then the line. Spoken slowly, each word placed like a stone. Raise your hand at her again. Silence. A full breathing beat. He didn't shout it. He barely said it. 5 words, and a man twice her size went the color of ash. And Kim Jae-won stood between her and everything, and looked at her. Only at her. And said the 3 words that would undo her completely. Are you hurt? Like she was something that mattered before she was something that was wanted. Like she was kept. This is the story of how a forensic accountant from Georgia went to Seoul to dismantle an empire, and fell in love with the man who built it, and why she doesn't regret a single thing. Before we go any deeper into this story, because we are going deep, this channel needs something from you right now. If you are a fan of dark romance, slow burn that makes you want to throw something, and a man who would quietly dismantle civilization to make sure she is safe, hit subscribe. Because this channel was built for you. Specifically, we made this for the ones who want the tension, the heat, the I know what you are and I chose you anyway energy. That is our whole thing here. Second, drop in the comments. Are you a Sarah or a J1? Are you the one who walks toward the danger, or the one standing in the shadows making sure the danger never reaches her? The comments on this one are going to be a whole conversation. I can already tell. Third, and this one matters, if you have a friend who would absolutely lose her mind over a Korean mafia boss who uses 5 quiet words to protect a woman he has no business loving, send her this video. Right now. Pause, send, come back. I'll wait. Okay. Are we all here? Good. Let's go back to Seoul. Seoul in October. The Han River at night looks like someone spilled the sky. Neon bleeding into black water. The city enormous and indifferent and alive in the way that cities with secrets are always alive. And Serafina Cole, Sarah, to anyone who loves her, which is currently 4 people and a cat back home in Georgia, is sitting at a desk in a building that belongs to a ghost, surrounded by financial documents in a language she reads better than she speaks. She is 28 years old. She is the sharpest person in every room she enters. She is, and this is the part she never says out loud, so tired of being sharp. So tired of being alone in the way that capable women get alone. Not abandoned. Just never quite met. She arrived with 2 carry-ons, a badge she cannot show anyone, and the particular exhaustion of a woman who has spent years being the most competent person in every room and has started to wonder if that competence is a wall she built so well she forgot there was something she was protecting inside it. Her mother died when she was 19. Medical debt. A misdiagnosis that compounded into a crisis that compounded into a bill that her mother's entire life could not cover. Sarah paid what she could. Then she built a career specifically designed to dismantle the systems that made that debt possible. She came to Seoul because the money that broke her family runs through networks like the one she's tracing now. She is not here for love. She is here for justice. These 2 things are about to become extremely complicated. On a desk drawer she keeps a notebook. In the drawer beneath it she keeps a knife. On the desk itself, there is a photograph of her mother, turned face down. Not because the memory hurts, because she cannot afford to be soft in this building. She has not decided yet what it means that she is thinking about it more. Lately, turning it over in her mind the way her hand keeps almost turning it over on the desk. Kim Jae-won does not look like your idea of a crime boss. He looks like architecture, like something designed with intention, tall, controlled, quiet in the specific way of men who have never needed volume because volume implies uncertainty, and he has not been uncertain since he was 17 years old and decided that survival was the only religion worth practicing. He has a room on the 34th floor of a building that publicly belongs to an architecture firm. There are plants in this room. Real ones, cared for by someone he pays specifically for this purpose. He does not know why he keeps them. He keeps them anyway. This is the first thing you need to understand about him. He does not always know why he does the tender things. He does them anyway. This will matter later. This will matter enormously. He sees her for the first time on a screen. Routine surveillance review. She is arguing with a senior detective who is speaking over her the way men have spoken over capable women since language was invented. And she does not flinch. She puts her finger on the document. She says something that tightens the man's jaw. She does not smile. She waits. Jae-won watches for 11 minutes without speaking. His head of surveillance, In-ho, pretends to be very interested in a different screen. After 11 minutes, Jae-won says, quietly, into the room, "Who is she?" Not a question. A recalibration of something. In-ho pulls her file. Jae-won reads it once. He closes it. He picks it back up. He reads the part about her mother twice. He sets it down. He tells himself this is operational caution and he believes it for approximately 4 days. 3 weeks later, Itaewon, an alley behind a street food stall, and Sarah Cole makes the decision she always makes. The one that moves toward the thing that's wrong and figures out the fear later. A young woman. A man's hand on her collar. A debt that apparently justifies this in someone's ledger. Sarah's phone is recording before the thought is fully formed. Her hands are shaking. She will never admit this. Then Min-jun arrives, Jae-won's enforcer, a man built like a consequence. And the air changes the way air changes when the danger in the room upgrades. He looks at Sarah. His hand goes to his earpiece. He goes very still. And then, slowly, he steps back. The woman is released. Sarah walks home. She writes in her notebook someone called him off and underlines it twice. She does not yet know that the someone was watching from a 34th floor and moved before he thought, and that the gap between that impulse and that thought is where this entire story lives. They meet properly, or as properly as two people carrying this much electricity can meet. At a client dinner she shouldn't be at, and he didn't change the seating chart to avoid. They speak twice. Both times. Brief, edged, charged with something neither of them names. She goes home and sits on her bathroom floor for 10 minutes telling herself it's paranoia. He finishes his drink, watches her leave, tells himself he's done watching. He is not done watching. He will never be done watching. He just doesn't have the word for it yet. Her cover doesn't shatter. It cracks, which is worse because a shattered cover gives you clean edges and a cracked one gives you the slow, horrible knowing that you are exposed but not yet exposed enough to understand how bad it will get. The Beck organization, Jae-won's most dangerous rivals, has a man inside her police unit. Her handler pulls her back. 72 hours dark. She goes to her apartment armed, running threat assessments in her head, when someone knocks at midnight. She opens the door on the chain first, looks through the gap, and there he is. He is rain damp. He stands like a man who has made a decision somewhere else and is simply delivering the result. She finds out later there are 2 men unconscious in her stairwell. She will think about this for a long time. She lets him in. She does not put the knife down. She carries it to the table, sets it where he can see it, and sits across from him like a woman who has already decided she won't be afraid of him and is daring him to make her a liar. He looks at the knife. Something almost like approval moves through his expression. "You already know something is wrong," he says. "You're deciding if I'm the problem or the solution." "You could be both," she says. "Yes," he says simply. "I could." He tells her about the Beck contract, the hit on her name that he intercepted. He offers the arrangement. He protects her operation, feeds her intelligence on the Beck network, and keeps her alive. In exchange, she finds him the name of his mole. She should say no. The word no exists. She knows what he is. She has traced 4 shell companies back to his name and read the kind of reports that make prosecutors sleep with the lights on. She says, why? Not why the deal. Why her? Why he is here at midnight instead of a phone call. Why his eyes have not left her face since he walked through the door. He is quiet for a moment. The rain on the window. The city breathing outside. Then, Because you didn't run. In the alley. You didn't run. It is not the whole truth. They both know it. Neither of them says so. She takes the deal. The knife stays on the table. He respects this. She notices that he respects this. This is where it begins, truly begins. Not the surveillance feed. Not the alley. Here, in her apartment at midnight, with a knife between them and the truth already moving underneath everything they say like a current neither of them is ready to name. Every Thursday after that. A private room above a jazz bar in Hongdae. The music coming up through the floorboards like a heartbeat. She tells herself it is operational. She starts choosing what she wears on Wednesdays. He arrives first every time and never explains why. She pretends not to notice. He pretends she doesn't notice. They are two of the most perceptive people in the city of Seoul conducting an elaborate fiction that neither of them believes. The first Thursday is almost rude. They are sharp with each other, challenging, which is its own kind of intimacy because you are only sharp with people you cannot be indifferent to. She challenges one of his methods. He doesn't defend it. He just watches her talk. And she becomes aware, mid-sentence, that she is being watched the way she has been watched exactly once before in her life. Like she is the most important thing in the room. Not the most dangerous. Not the most useful. The most important. She finishes her argument. He says, "You're right." And nothing else. She goes home and opens her notebook and writes nothing. Just sits with the blank page and the specific feeling of being seen by the wrong person at exactly the right time. The second Thursday he brings food. From a pojangmaka on a street she mentioned in passing 3 weeks ago, in a sentence that was not about the food at all. She stares at the containers. She stares at him. He is looking at the window. "You remembered," she says, and her voice comes out softer than she intended. He still doesn't look at her. "I remember everything you say," he says, like it's a simple fact and not something that splits her open. She eats every bite. She makes sure he sees. He makes sure she knows he noticed. They talk for 2 hours past when they should have stopped. She tells him about her mother, the whole shape of it, the medical debt, the year after when she was 19 and alone in a way that has no clean word, the specific furious grief of watching a system consume someone you loved and deciding to spend your life dismantling it. She starts to stop herself mid-sentence. He says, "You don't have to," and she hears underneath it, "But I would be honored if you did." She finishes anyway. She cries once. One tear. Wiped with the back of her hand like she's eliminating evidence. He watches her do this and something in his expression does what faces do when we love people and have not yet said so. The third Thursday. They are standing at the window. Seoul spread below them. Lit and indifferent and enormous. She says something. Afterward she won't be able to remember the exact words. Only the effect. He turns. And his face does the thing she's been catching in fragments for weeks. All at once, fully in the window light. Unguarded. Open. Wanting. And she recognizes it because she has been wearing it on the inside for weeks. Neither of them moves. The city breathes. Her phone rings. Her handler. And the moment seals over like water over a stone and they step back into their armor and she leaves and he stands at that window alone for a very long time. The same week, seen from both sides. Sarah lies in bed at 3 in the morning reconstructing his expressions the way she reconstructs financial ledgers. Looking for the pattern, the true number hiding beneath the presented one. She calls her aunt and says nothing real. She stops turning the photo face down. Her mother, right side up now on the desk, watching. Jae-won moves a collection operation that Sarah would have walked through. He tells himself it is route efficiency. Minjun says nothing. The silence means Minjun knows. The silence means everyone knows. And Jae-won, who built an empire on not caring what anyone thinks, finds with absolute fury that he doesn't care about that either. He only cares about one thing. One woman on a bathroom floor telling herself it's paranoia. He is absolutely that dangerous. But not to her. Never to her. He has decided. The Chongya Syndicate social event. She is undercover. The dress is red and she chose it on a Wednesday and she would not examine why if you paid her. She walks in and sees him across the room before he sees her, and this is the part she will always remember. Her body orients toward him before her mind catches up. like a compass doing its only job, finding north without being asked. Then Park Sung-hoon, drunk, entitled The Particular Danger of a Man Who Has Never Been Told No by Someone Who Meant It. He corners her near the bar. She is running calculations, can't blow cover, can't make a scene, handle it herself, the blade in her clutch is accessible. And the conversation escalates in the way these conversations escalate, ratcheting up 1 degree at a time until suddenly the degrees don't matter anymore and his hand is moving. The room goes quiet before the sound registers. Before anything registers. Just quiet. And then, from somewhere behind him, a voice. Low, precise. The vocal equivalent of a blade being set on a table where everyone can see it. Raise your hand at her again. No volume. No performance. 5 words that rearranged the air in the room like a change in atmospheric pressure. Sung-hoon's face went the color of ash. And Kim Jae-won stepped between her and everything, and he was looking at her, only at her. His eyes moving over her face, her hands, her breath in the quick and thorough way of a man checking for damage. She has been looked at with desire. She has been looked at with calculation. She has been looked at with both at once. She has never been looked at like this, like she is something that matters before she is something that is wanted. Like she is kept. Are you hurt? She will never forget those words from him. How stripped they were of everything except the need to know. No, she said. He nodded once. He turned to Sung-hoon. 3 words in Korean she didn't understand yet, and she noted, in the part of her brain that keeps running even when the rest of her has gone completely still, that she would learn that phrase. She wanted to know what it meant when he said it. Sung-hoon was gone from the syndicate before morning. Permanently. And Serafina Cole stood in a gold-lit room that smelled of whiskey and old money and understood that she has not been a transaction for a very long time. The terrifying part is she doesn't know when it changed. The more terrifying part is she doesn't want to. His side of that moment, because you need to be inside him for this. He was not supposed to be watching her. He was in a conversation about logistics and something in his peripheral vision shifted and his body turned before his mind gave the instruction. He ran the calculation in 2 seconds. Sung-hoon's value, the political cost, the message it sends. He ran all of it. And then he spoke and every calculation became irrelevant and he understood that it had been irrelevant for a long time. He stood between her and everything. And something in him that had been held in extreme muscular tension for 15 years simply released. Not dramatically. The way a breath releases. The way you put down something you had forgotten you were carrying. She is unhurt. She is here. She is looking at him like she finally has a name for something. He notes, with a feeling he cannot classify but recognizes as the most dangerous thing that has ever happened to him, that he will teach her that phrase. So she always knows what it means when he says it. When, not if. He has apparently decided. Again. They're next Thursday. Everything is different and neither of them pretends it isn't. They sit across from each other and the air between them has weight and she says, "You could have handled that without being there yourself." "Yes," he says. "So why?" "You know why." She does. She has known for weeks. She just needed to hear him say something true first. "I've been slowing the investigation," she says, and the words cost her. "I know why I've been doing it. I need to stop lying to myself." He is very still. "And have you?" he asks. "Stopped lying?" She looks at him across the table in the room above the jazz bar, with the music coming up through the floor and the city outside and his face open in the way it is only ever open here with her. "I'm working on it," she says. "You could help. Tell me how," he says, and his voice has dropped into something she hasn't heard from him before. Something that is not soft exactly but has given up being hard. "Tell me something true," she says. "Something you haven't told anyone." He is quiet for a long time. Long enough that she thinks he won't. Then, "I built this empire to survive. I was systematic about it. I cut away everything that could be used against me, everything that could break. And I was good at it, Sarah. I was very good at it. And then you walked into a dark alley and pointed a phone at a man with a gun, and your hands were shaking and you didn't stop." He pauses. "You were the first thing in 15 years that I couldn't calculate." The silence that follows is not empty. It is full of everything they have not said yet and are now, finally, saying. She comes to him later that week. Not to his building, to the quiet apartment above the jazz bar where he goes when he wants to hear music and think without anyone watching him think. She found it by mapping his patterns of movement. When she knocks, he is already at the door. She tells him the truth. Not all of it, but enough. The whole shape of her mother's story. The year she was 19 and alone, and the specific generational fury of watching a system swallow someone you love whole. She cries once. One tear wiped like evidence. He watches, and something in his face does what faces do when we love people before we have the right to say so. Then he tells her. The boy before the empire. What he survived. The neighborhood that tried to consume him. The 17-year-old who decided that coldness was the only armor that didn't crack. The 15 years of careful erasure of everything soft. Not because I wanted to be hard, he says, but because soft things broke and I could not afford to break. He pauses. And then you were in a surveillance feed arguing with a man twice your size, and you didn't back down once. And something in me that had been sealed for a very long time, cracked. And I have been furious about it ever since. Furious? She repeats, a question in her voice. Because I knew what it meant, he says. I knew exactly what it meant, and I knew what it would cost. And, she asks, quietly, was it worth it? He looks at her for a long time. The city outside, the music below them. Ask me again when this is over, he says. And I will tell you yes. They exist together for a while then, in the strange, excruciating gift of regular proximity. Not crisis. Just the terrifying ordinary of two people who have stopped pretending. He is, surprisingly, the better cook. She reads recipes like contracts and executes them with devastating precision, which he finds. He has learned to name these things now, endearing. She wears his shirt at 6 in the morning when she thinks he is asleep. He is not asleep. He lies still and watches the ceiling and understands the meaning of the word undone. She teaches him a phrase. What her aunt calls her. Beloved girl. He says it back. Wrong the first time, the syllables unfamiliar in his mouth. Right the second time. She doesn't say anything. She looks out the window with an expression he has memorized from every angle. He learns, for the first time in 15 years, what it is to be afraid of loss. Not the empire. Not exposure. Her. The specific, irreplaceable shape of her in his kitchen at 6 in the morning. In his shirt. Looking at the city like she might be thinking about staying. Minjun tells her something Jae-won will never tell himself. Years ago, before the empire was the empire, back when it was still just a furious boy and a handful of loyal men, Jae-won built a school. In the neighborhood that destroyed him. Quietly. No name on it. No credit. Just a school because children there had nowhere to go, and he remembered what that felt like. Sarah doesn't confront Jae-won with this. She just carries it. Adds it to everything else she knows about him and feels, with the precision she applies to everything. This is a man who has been surviving when what he was built for was something else entirely. Something closer to beloved. And then the mole is found. Cha In-ho. His head of surveillance. The man who pulled her file that first night. Who has known from the beginning exactly what she is. Who watched Jae-won fall and sold the information to Beck. The room Jae-won is in when he finds out goes very, very quiet. Not the quiet he makes, but the quiet that happens when something breaks that cannot be replaced. The entire syndicate now knows that Kim Jae-won sheltered a law enforcement officer inside his operation. Loved her. Let her in. And every man who has spent 15 years fearing him is now looking for the crack that love made. 3 men speak at once in the room where Jae-won sits like a man who has already decided but is giving the room the courtesy of finishing its sentence. The consensus is operational. She is law enforcement. She is a liability. She is inside the inner circle, and no one is naive enough to say her name when they mean remove her. Jae-won listens to all 3. He is very still, the stillness that makes rooms quiet. Then, in a voice so controlled it is its own kind of violence. She is not to be touched, ever, by anyone. This is not a discussion. He comes to her that night and tells her plainly, the way he has always been plain with her. 48 hours. She needs to go. The Beck organization will move. Even his protection has limits when the syndicate itself is fracturing. And you? She says. He says nothing. She understands. If she goes, he stays. This is his empire. His city. 15 years of his life. She looks at him and she is not performing calm. She is calm, which is more frightening because it means she is already calculating, and what she is calculating is how to stay. Then I'll stay, she says. I'll burn my cover completely. I'll stay as what? His voice is very quiet. What name will you use? What will you tell your unit? What will you tell your government? The silence after this is the most devastating moment between them. Not a fight, not a declaration, just the specific silence of two people who know each other well enough to understand what cannot be changed. She is not just a woman in love. She is a woman who built her entire life on the proposition that systems can be made accountable. And he is a system, and she chose him anyway. She has been choosing him with her eyes open for months. I know what you are, she says. I knew from the beginning. Yes, he says. And I know what you are. That's why you have to go. Don't, she says, and her voice breaks on it. Just once, just slightly, the way a strong thing breaks when it has been asked to hold too much. Don't decide this for me. I am not deciding for you, he says, and the thing in his voice, the thing under the control, the thing that costs him. I am deciding for me. I cannot keep you safe here. And keeping you safe is the only thing I have not been willing to negotiate. She looks at him for a long time. He looks back. Neither of them looks away. Ask me again, she says finally. When this is over. Was it worth it? Ask me again when you're safe, he says. And I will tell you yes. He spends 48 hours doing the most quietly devastating thing he has ever done. He builds her an exit, not just physically but operationally. He feeds her everything. Financial records, encrypted and complete. The Beck organization's full network. Every thread she came to Seoul to pull, he hands her the end of it. He builds her the victory she came for, the one that closes cases and ends careers and makes her name. He does it without her knowledge. Min-jun watches him work through the night and says, after a long silence, she's not going to forgive you for deciding this for her. She will when she's safe, Jae-won says. You don't know her very well then. A pause. Actually, you know her better than anyone, which is why you know she'll come back. Jae-won is quiet for a long time. I'm counting on it, he says. And the way he says it is not hope. It is certainty, the way a man is certain about a woman who walked into a dark alley with shaking hands and didn't stop. She goes. She gets on the plane. She completes the mission. 23 cases broken open. Her name on every brief. She is back home in her aunt's kitchen, her mother's photograph on the table right side up now, watching, when the encrypted drive arrives. She sits with it for 3 days. She knows what it cost him. She knows what he gave her. She is absolutely furious. She is absolutely undone. She sits at the kitchen table and her aunt brings tea and doesn't ask questions because some answers rearrange everything and need to be sat with first. On the 4th day, she buys a ticket back to Seoul. She tells herself it is to confront him. She knows it isn't. Incheon Airport. The city in the distance. Seoul enormous and lit and indifferent and somehow looking like somewhere she is from. The cab. The building. The door opening before she knocks. Min-jun. Unsurprised. Stepping back. He's upstairs. She goes up. He is standing at the window. He doesn't turn, but his shoulders change. The micro-adjustment of a man who has been waiting and will not let himself run toward what he's been waiting for. The city behind him. The room quiet. You built me an exit, she says. Yes. Without asking me. Yes. You gave me everything I came here for. He turns then. That expression, the one she has never been able to fully classify, except that it looks like the opposite of armor. Like a man who has decided, finally and completely, to be seen. I know, he says. I gave you what you came for. I wanted you to have a reason to come back for something else. She crosses the room. Not slowly. She is done being slow. She has been slow for months and she is tired of distance and she is home, in a way that has nothing to do with geography and everything to do with him. His hands find her with the same quality she has felt in everything he has ever done for her, careful. Like something worth keeping. like something he has already decided to keep and is only now, finally, being allowed to say so. "I came back," she says quietly, her face against his shoulder, the city below them, "because you knew me, and you let me go anyway, and that—" She pauses. "That is the most terrifying thing anyone has ever done for me." "I know," he says into her hair. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she says. "Just don't do it again." He holds her tighter. "Never again," he says, and she believes him. Not because she is naive about what he is, but because she knows exactly what he is, and she knows with forensic certainty that Kim Jae-won does not make promises. He makes decisions. And he has decided. Seoul breathes below them, the Han River glittering, the city indifferent and enormous and alive. And Serafina Cole, who came to dismantle an empire, stands in the middle of one, with her eyes open, and calls it home. She didn't stay for his power. She didn't stay despite his darkness. She stayed because she knew him, the boy who built a school in silence, the man who made a call from a 34th floor before the thought was finished, the person who handed her his city's secrets and asked for nothing back. She stayed because some people see you, completely, armor and all, and love the thing underneath before you have finished deciding whether to show it. And there is something to be carried from this story, something true in it that is not just about dark romance and forbidden love and a Korean mafia boss who would quietly burn down the world to keep one woman safe. The lesson is this: the people who love you well do not ask you to be less. They do not ask you to put down the knife. They do not ask you to stop being the version of yourself that walked into the dark alley and didn't run. They sit across the table and they say you're right, and they remember the name of the street where you mentioned a food stall once 3 weeks ago, in a sentence that was not about the food. They see the face-down photograph and they do not ask. They wait. And when you turn it over, when you finally let yourself be soft, be known, be kept, they hold that softness like it is the most valuable thing they have ever been trusted with. And you who have been sharp for so long, you who are tired in the particular way of people who have been the most capable person in every room and are starting to wonder what it would feel like to not carry it alone. You are allowed to let someone stand between you and the thing that's wrong. You are allowed to be the thing someone decides to keep. Strength and surrender are not opposites. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay. Thank you for being here until the very last word. It means more than you know, because you didn't have to stay and you did, and that is exactly the kind of person this story was made for. If it moved you, if it found something in you that needed finding, share it. Leave a comment. Tell me which moment undid you. And come back, because there are more stories where this one came from, and every single one of them was made for you. Beloved, you stayed. So did she. That's the whole story.